Peter, you did a good job. You were lucky as hell, but you were right to open him up. Good work.
September 19th, 1994 saw the series debut of the popular medical drama TV show ER, where we follow along as audience members the trials and tribulations of various ER staff members working in the fictitious Cook County General Hospital in Chicago. But what constitutes the series in essence, and its focus upon the space of ER rooms? That's what I want to explore in this video, where we will discuss some key thematics in the show, as well as explore what significance is to be found in placing the show around emergency rooms. For this latter point, I would claim here that ER explores the geographic locale of immediate crisis mediation, where some patients are fixed up, often using the frequently employed suture kits as an aid, while others meet the dire consequence of death, as even one of the emergency room doctors, Susan Lewis, remarks on the show, where she says something along the lines of that there is a certain simplicity of helping patients who seek immediate attention, where more daunting implications further down the line are handled within a larger network structure of society itself or other localized networks of medical treatment facilities. However, as is often alluded throughout the show, how one is able to take care of patients as staff, even within the hospital, depends on a host of factors, such as staff availability, resources, and insurance policies, reflecting the privatized nature of the American hospital system, to name but a few. It seems even as an individual or as a team working together as a hospital cluster, one is still facing a barrage of challenges, even within the confines of Cook County General Hospital. In addition, Susan is also very much a doctor who throws herself in the fast-paced nature of work in order to block out the external world and its problems, as is also taken up by a number of other characters throughout the show. We can then say that ER explores in its essence the dealing of crises and how one applies immediate resolution in order to deal with this factor, as ER is above all fast-paced, and despite its use of long characteristic tracking shots in terms of camera work, its intense activity portrayal seems its overarching major characteristic. In fact, its fast-paced nature seems even more accelerated than real-life ER departments, where it's not unusual to have longer periods of inactivity than what is commonly portrayed on the show. But the ER locality makes up but one geography of location in terms of treating crisis, where there also exists medical networks where patients are referred to, as well as the larger network comprising a multitude of departments within the city of Chicago. This cartography of medical networks thus reveals the limitations portrayed within the show's focus on crisis intervention that its host of characters must constantly combat, and where patients are tossed around like domino bricks between its internal and external bureaucracies. The intricacies of logistics also links crisis intervention to that of modernity, where since the world has gotten increasingly specialized, where, as showcased on ER, there seems to be an uninterrupted barrage of conflicts between differing departments, all of whom argue from their vantage point as to who should take responsibility for this or that patient who comes along. That is to say nothing of the demands stemming from insurance claims, where given patients' lack of insurance, it is sometimes witnessed by characters on the show that they are willing to lie to insurance companies in order to secure the proper treatment of their patients. This brings in ethics to the table in terms of patient care, along with critiquing the systemic structures of the US healthcare system. The crises themselves have also become more globalized, along with its patients, who, due to mobility advancements such as in aviation, may come from very far parts of the world. Contracted diseases may therefore become more difficult to diagnose, along with the fact that there is an added complexity with cases such as global infections or large-scale pandemics which seek to undermine not just localized hospitals and medical networks, but also global society taken as a whole, where the logistics of healthcare becomes even more complex due to its multi-layered networks. We can therefore conclude that creating order from crisis becomes ever increasingly more globalized, specialized, as well as more complex as technology and society progresses. Returning to the show, the emergency rooms as showcased on ER work as an interesting geographical starting point in terms of treating crisis, which showcases the intersection between patient body care, medical networks, logistics of staff control, hierarchy among staff relations, structural bureaucracy, and the overall urban societal relations, which take place around Chicago as portrayed on ER. While the management of crisis remains much the same in our modern day and age, the focus on some diseases differ. For while AIDS in the 80s and 90s was treated as a death sentence, due to advancements of antiviral drugs in this day and age, HIV has become a lot more manageable, which means that also AIDS cases have steadily decreased in our modernized world. The mortality rate, for instance, regarding HIV-positive patients is in many cases not much different from the general population, where this is especially true if one is young and respond well to modern antiviral drugs. In addition, even surgeons which have tested positive for HIV are allowed to perform surgery, with the caveat that they are on antiviral drugs, where it is found that due to the efficacy of the treatment, with undetectable viral loads, the overall risk of transmission is found to be near zero. This aspect is in fact covered on ER, where we witness the character of Jeannie Bollet, a physician's assistant, test positive for HIV, yet she continues to assist in surgeries. Obviously, as is remarked in the show, this results in her facing ostracization and hesitancy in terms of professionalism by characters such as Dr. Benton, for instance. And in addition, as this event occurs in Season 3 or in 1996, this was coincidentally also a time in which antiviral drugs were improving rapidly, making the probability of transferring the virus a lot less likely than previously. In any case, the treatment of the topic of AIDS during the 90s, when the show ran, is certainly important in terms of portraying a social history that differs from the present and gives us a nice time capsule to discuss things ethically.
Nobody knew how bad it was. We knew it was bad. We knew it was terrible. Nobody knew quite how bad it was. We knew that because of this cascade of infections in Australia and other countries, we knew that it had to be stopped among people who inject drugs. Otherwise, it would reach out to the general community.
Another important aspect of the show's success stems from not treating viewers as overtly ignorant in terms of displaying a realistic medical practice, which in real-life procedures are showcased in such detail where the viewer themselves will have to work out the details of administration to the effect of the given drug of choice, as well as the chosen operation procedure. Our insight into, for example, the effect of the medicine used is therefore relegated to paying close attention to the dialogue, which includes portions of explanations which stem from either clarification, communication with other personnel also present during the procedure, or from a justification in terms of why this treatment should be opted for in favor of other treatments. In addition, the show's fast-paced nature also extends to the medical procedures, where we as viewers are encouraged to follow the fast-paced movements that are performed by the actors. These scenes also help to invoke the thin red line which separates life from death, where the distinction between these two states often comes down to an interval of seconds in terms of response time. Here, we once again also witness the effect of medical networks and geography, where the coordination between teams such as paramedics, nurses, and doctors, along with incidental geographical logistics or luck, play a major role in terms of saving the patient's lives. Lastly, the show highlights the long-standing dispute between ER doctors and surgeons in terms of treatment, where the former is generally on the side of administering medications, where the latter opts for surgery. Although ER is not the first serious medical TV drama, where the format itself goes back decades, it certainly was novel in terms of a network televised show and not dumbing down its material for audiences, as well as the fact that it explored racial diversity, gender, classism, wealth inequality, in particular negative aspects of a privatized healthcare system, as well as showcasing various other components of urban social life. However, what I claim is instrumental to its success stems a lot from treating emergency rooms as localities for the remedy of generalized crisis as it unfolds. But this treatment of crisis is, as the show highlights, a severely structured network, where from the starting point of the victim's body in the emergency room, we quickly connect other medical networks, first via the confines of the hospital walls themselves, such as involving other personnel and departments, before we extend to other medical networks located in the city, before connecting more generally to the bureaucratic machinations of the city of Chicago itself. We end with the note that just as the cultural infrastructure of the hospital interacts through its highly enjoyable assemblages and mix of personalities, the city infrastructure itself plays a major role in ER. That is, I guess, part of what makes ER so enjoyable in many ways. In this sense, the show is not only a medical drama, but also a portrait of urban interdependence, dramatizing how personal, institutional, and civic networks are constantly entangled. Ultimately, ER's lasting influence lies in showcasing that a television series could balance the intimacy of character-driven storytelling with the complexity of systemic social critique, and that's why it stays near my heart. Okay, that makes up for this week's video, and I'll see you soon. Please like and subscribe, so yeah, cheers.